Hey, welcome to another episode of Hooks and Ladders, the podcast where we talk about songwriting in all its various glorious forms. My name is Blair Packham.
And my name is Allister Bradley.
We have a special guest today, formerly of the lowest of the low, but also currently of the lowest of the low, because that's how things go. A much beloved band in Toronto, and another much beloved band as well, the Do Good Assassins, and also a solo artist in his own right. We're really pleased to have with us Ron Hawkins. Hey, Ron, how are you?
Hey, pleased to be here.
Great, fantastic. You know, on this podcast, we ask questions that we hope are sort of particular to the guest, but also are general enough that the people watching and listening will benefit from it, of course. So I want to ask you a really big question, and,
sure.
But answer it from your point of view. Can a song change the world?
And the clock starts now.
Well, let's see. I mean, I've always believed so, and it's probably why I'm still doing it at my age. I started playing music when I was 16, and I was a very political young guy, and I loved music, and I also got very heavily involved in politics, and they seemed to be separate things. And then at some point, I don't know if it was a balmy summer watching Billy Bragg at the Masonic Temple in Toronto or something, but suddenly everything went like whoop, like this, bands like the Pogues and Weddings, Parties, Anything, and the Clash and stuff like that. Suddenly it occurred to me that you could weave the two things together, and I didn't have to do these two things separately and be two people. I could just weave them together. So that would have been the start of it for me. And as I say, like every summer I would go see Billy Bragg, and the thing I loved about him was that when I came out of those shows into the August night in Toronto, I was so pumped up to go home and write songs or make my band better. But it wasn't just about that. I would say that, when you leave a Billy Bragg show, if you're a baker, like you want to go home and be the best baker you can possibly be. And so that's the element that I feel art can change the world, is that it imbues people with the desire to live in a world worth changing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so much that what I say lyrically or the amped upness of the song is going to make you do something specific in the real world, but it's to send you home with the vitamins, like the sort of the oxygen to care enough about your fellow person and the world to go and bother to do something about it.
That's a beautiful answer, actually. That's very succinct. Yeah. So inspiring people to change the world for the better, even if it's the immediate world around them, of course. If it's infectious, it's going to change the world at large.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Like, to me, the immediate world around you is the only one you can change, right? So, and I have been doing this long enough that I'm a living embodiment of how I tried to do it one way. The guys in Lowest of the Low, me and David and Steven, used to have a band called Popular Front. And in that band, we were writing, we were probably affected by the times. We were U2, people like that. We were writing big P politics songs about the globe and about other places in the world. And, and it's not to say that there weren't real things involved in that and that we didn't have the intellect or the critical thinking to say things about those things, but they were just too big and they were just too peripheral to the people that came to see our shows, and it didn't really take off. That band never really got the traction. And it was sort of like something happened to me in like 1989, 1990, where I brought the songwriting back home closer to myself. And that's, of course, songwriting 101 or anything writing 101 is write what you know, right? So I started to, rather than talk about the politics out there, I would take the same ideas and talk about the people I knew and the bars I was going to and the neighborhoods I was in. And I made the politics maybe a slightly smaller P, but closer to myself. And thus they resonated more with people. And so they became, and people can always see the universal in the thing. I think some people make the mistake of like, if I'm not writing about the exact thing and using the exact name, people won't get it. But the thing is, people are very layered and deep, and they'll get it. It'll resonate with them in a different way. And so it was kind of like I hid I made a trifle and I hid the politics under a layer of angel food cake, and suddenly it just resonated, and that band took off like crazy. And I think part of the reason was because it was very real,
Yeah. I think it was Carl Jung who said about writing, not songwriting, but he said that when the more particular you get, the more specific you get, the more universal it actually becomes.
Right.
Interesting phenomenon. When you write about Fluffy the cat, if I were writing a song with Allister about Fluffy the cat, Allister may say he wouldn't. I know he wouldn't, but he may say,
As long as I take my reactant first, I'd be okay.
right. But you also might say, well, nobody else has a cat named Fluffy. How are they going to relate to that?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that, anyone who has a cat or a pet of any kind, or has loved an animal of any kind with a name, is going to relate. They're going to sort of, so when you sing about, sort of, the bars you went to, as you say, and the people you knew and so forth, but also these particular situations, they're particular and they're specific, but they're also universal because we're all humans.
Yeah, and funny that you should bring up a cat, because I don't know if you know, you probably do know, Weaker Thans, and the Weaker Thans song, Virtute the cat. John has written 3 songs about a cat named Virtute, and of course it's about a cat, but it's really about longing and about loss and about communion with the cat's owner and stuff like that. Like, so some people get good enough at a certain point where they're tricking you into learning things and feeling things, even if you don't want to feel things. I'm going to make you feel things anyway.
Well, so many people say, you must have heard this a million times, politics are boring.
Yeah.
And they're right to a point. And it's part of the design of the overall machine is to numb you with all this information and make it seem boring, and and make a slap at the Oscars and be the most fascinating thing in the world, when meanwhile the world is burning, it's on fire.
Yeah.
But people say that. I think it's because it's politics, they don't relate. It's too general for them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when a writer like you writes about the local stuff that's going on, that's just as political. Even a love song is political, really.
Yeah, and it's just like the ecosystem. I mean, there's no big things and small things. Everything is everything, right? Like, everything is connected. And and the other thing is, a lot of people, I think a lot of big P politics songs, some people can do it. I can't do it. So maybe that's what I wave the white flag. I can't write that way and do a good job. Some people can do that. But I mean, I find most of the times it sounds like they're preaching at you, or it sounds like they're telling you you're too stupid to get it. And I don't think people receive information well when you're telling them they're stupid and they should receive it, Yeah. So
absolutely.
So I'm never telling people that I know something you don't know. I'm only telling people, look, I'm alive and you're alive, and I care about you, and I hope that you care about other people, and we need to build a community together. How can we do that? That's all I'm ever saying to people. And I just do it through my own lens,
You said the big P word, the big preach word, and that's something I wanted to get into. In fact, with you is, do you see that? Because writing politically is more than just writing to get someone to feel something. It's hopefully writing to inspire somebody to do something.
Yeah,
do something positive. But having said that, do you think there's really much difference in the songwriting when you're trying to inspire somebody to feel something versus trying to inspire somebody to do something? There's nothing subversive about it. I want to get to this so that our viewers can perhaps feel that if they ever had a longing to write something in an activism kind of genre, but they thought, well, I can't do that because maybe it needs to be subversive. Do you think that there needs to be such a difference necessarily between writing a love song and writing a political song?
No, and again, I'll come back to Billy Bragg and say that I went to school on him because what I thought he was great at was, I consider him a love songwriter, really. And I mean, whether he writes actual love songs, but then anytime he's writing about a union or he's writing about a world he wants to see come into existence, that's a love song too. I mean, the whole point is not to, like, this is what I mean about I don't think that I write, I don't even know what subversion means, because to me, like, subversion for me is, I just want us to collectively make a world in which we give a shit about each other and that we create a community that supports each other. And I know that we can't do that correctly under capitalism. Like, undoubtedly we can't. I mean, we've seen for 100 years that we can't. Like, we can live in a country as wealthy as Canada and have Indigenous people with no fresh water to drink. Like that, it does not work. So if me saying that doesn't work and we have to change the system to make it in a way that will work, if that's subversive, then okay, you call it what you want, but it's just me saying I'm a human and there are other humans. I don't want to watch them perish, you know. But I keep coming back to the idea that my point is not, I don't ever try to write things in my songs to say, I think you should go and do this now. I really don't think that's the job. I don't think art is good at that. I don't think it's wired for that. What I think it's wired for is making you feel the most human you can possibly feel. And then when you do feel the most human you can possibly feel, you find that you do care about other people, and you realize that you need to care about other people. You know,
it's back to the old show don't tell. You don't have to tell somebody to feel something, but if you show them something that makes them feel something, you've done a great job. You don't have to tell somebody to be active.
You can model empathy. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, my old comrades in politics, a lot of them go, it's just petty bourgeois bullshit art, you know, like the art direction, it doesn't get anything done on the ground. And I'm like, I don't think it's meant to get anything specific done on the ground. I think it's meant to be the fellow traveler that makes you feel alive, so that you get up in the morning wanting to do it, you know? If there was no art in this world and no music, why would you give a shit to fix this world, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's true. It's funny you mentioned your old comrades in politics. What comes to mind for me are other musicians that were around when Popular Front was playing, L'Étranger, Charlie Angus, and Andrew Cash. Did you ever have a desire to go into politics the way they have?
Yeah, I did. I mean, not into sort of liberal democratic politics. I was in the leftist movement. I was a Trotskyist at some point. So I was in very, very far left politics in the way that we talk about subversion and subversiveness, to try and create a socialist future. Because I thought, I also, I was very young. So I reckon at this point in my life with, the detritus that's left over from Stalinism and all those kind of things. Like, I recognize people go, but Ron, and I'm like, just let me cut you off at the pass there. I recognize the problems with it. And as a person, I've spent my whole adult life trying to find out where to put the energy I have, which originally drew me in that direction and still draws me in that direction. Like, socialism still, what am I trying to say? Socialism still sort of illustrates who I am, but I recognize it's hard to find a model that you can point people at. There are no good models you can point people at. So, it's yet to be created in a way that needs to work. But yeah, so I mean, and that's fights I've had with people politically, as I say, old comrades and stuff like that, politically about that stuff. I fight with artists about it. It's like, it's just part of it's baked into the cake to try and, because again, at no point am I saying I'm right. I'm just saying I'm a person who hopes to, all my life until they put me in the ground, be curious and be reaching for a better place to do this, and, my art better chords, everything,
What a great way to end, actually. That's fantastic. I agree from the evidence of your work and from knowing you as little as I do, but I agree. You are that person, and I think that's something for other people to aspire to as well, actually. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thoughts on this stuff.